Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to today's program entitled Goal Setting and Performance Planning. Before we start, let me start with a question. What would happen if employees work hard every day but do not know exactly what they were expected to achieve? Or secondly, how could we as an organization achieve our objectives without setting objectives and measuring performance of employees? Employees may be busy, but they may not be productive, and their efforts may not be aligned to ensure a successful organization. And therefore, goal setting and performance planning provide the foundation for answering these two questions. Why? It is because they translate organizational goals and strategy into clear, measurable, and achievable expectations. And it is for this reason that departments, teams, and individual employees set their goals and plan for the next cycle of performance. My name is Andrew Ondari, and I am here to discuss with us the concept of goal setting and performance planning. Welcome. To put performance planning and goal setting in context, allow me to say one or two things. That goal setting and performance planning come in the performance management cycle. That means that this is part of performance management cycle or process. Where does it fall? It falls between corporate strategy planning and strategy implementation and monitoring. Meaning that once corporate objectives and strategies are set, they are cascaded down to departmental, team, and individual levels, where managers or supervisors and employees sit together to set goals and plan for performance. To make us understand even more this concept, let us look at an introduction to goal setting and performance planning, after which we shall look at the key themes that we are going to discuss this morning. One is the starting point, that goal setting sets into motion individual management cycle. And what do I mean by this? That when Organizations set their strategic plans and objectives at the beginning of a year, either in January for private sector organizations or in July for public organizations. These strategies are cascaded to the departments, and the departmental heads develop their objectives, which are then passed to individual performance objectives. So goal setting becomes the first thing that supervisors and employees do when the performance management cycle begins. Without this goal setting, it becomes very difficult to monitor progress or even measure performance at any given time. Secondly, goal setting involves cascading of those goals. Cascading means translating organizational goals into departmental, team, and individual objectives. As I will demonstrate in the next few minutes, the starting point of goal setting is derived from the corporate strategy. So those corporate strategies and objectives are the ones that are analyzed and defined by the departmental heads and then passed down to the teams and finally to the individuals. And this is intentional. Why? To ensure that the individual, team, and the departmental objectives are aligned with the corporate priorities and strategies. And that is the need for cascading, so that we interpret corporate goals and strategies at departmental, team, and individual levels. Closely related to goal setting and performance planning is SMART goals. And again, in the next few minutes, we shall discuss what these SMART goals are. That they define specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. That the managers or supervisors sit with the employees to set specific goals. Specific goals relate to 4 specific WH questions. What are these questions? What? Secondly, who? Thirdly, where? And lastly, when? So when you answer these WH questions, then you will be specific. And then the aspect of measurement, where we are developing metrics or KPIs that will determine whether we are achieving anything or not. So there is a measurable value which is determined at the beginning of this process, so that at the end of it, we can quantify what has been achieved. And then achievable is what is practicable or what is feasible. And this will depend on a number of factors. One, the individual capabilities of the employee. Secondly, the resources available. And 4, the support given to the employees. That without the competences, without the resources, without the support, then an objective may not be achievable. On relevance, we think about how those objectives set at the individual level will help to achieve the vision, mission, and the strategic priorities of the organization. So relevance relates to support or alignment with the departmental and organizational objectives. And therefore, the purpose of specific objectives is that they should be relevant to the attainment of corporate strategy and objectives. In relation to time bound, there are two things. One, the timelines given to achieve those objectives. For example, today is the 8th of August. If there is an objective to be achieved, like recruitment of 20 employees, so the time starts now, today, up to maybe October 15th. So that is a timeline. And then secondly is the deadline. Deadline is the exact date on which the objective should be achieved, beyond which it means that we are lagging behind or we have not met our target. So when we're talking of goal setting, the concept of SMART goals come into our minds, and we shall discuss this in the next few minutes. Then another aspect related to goal setting is performance criteria. These are the standards that are used to measure performance over a period of time. A standard can be quantitative or qualitative or behavioral or something related to time. I may pick any of them at random, like quality. When we are conducting recruitment and selection, there is a standard of quality that we think about. And which quality are we looking at? The quality of employees who are hired. Quality employees are those who perform to expected levels. Quality employees are those who fit into the organizational culture. And the quality employees are those who deliver their targets on time. So those are standards associated with quality employees. There are other standards related to time. For example, timely recruitment and selection, meaning that if we set an objective related to recruitment and we say that we shall take 45 days, then within the 45 days, we should be able to hire the right quality employees. So 45 days becomes a standard in terms of time. Another standard, which I will also talk about, is behavior. There are certain expected behaviors of employees for them to achieve their objectives. For example, time management. Are employees able to report to work on time? So time management becomes a behavior which can be measured during performance evaluations. Then another aspect related to goal setting and performance planning is performance planning itself, which means that we establish in advance the objectives, the timelines, the resources, and the people responsible for various activities. In the public sector, this performance planning will lead to a performance contract, which you call a PC, an agreement between the employee and the employer on the goals and expectations that the employees will have achieved over a given period of time. So ladies and gentlemen, these are key concepts which we'll be discussing as we move to the content of our training this morning. And what are the key themes that we shall discuss this morning? One is SMART goals and performance criteria, which I have already alluded to, but I'm happy that we shall discuss this in detail. Secondly is KPI development. These are key performance indicators and how we can develop them from beginning to the end. These are measurable values, which can be quantitative or qualitative. The supervisors and employees sit together at the beginning of a performance management cycle to set those specific KPIs. And this will be used to measure the performance of individual employees or teams or the departments. And then lastly is about cascading goals, that we need to translate corporate goals and objectives into departmental, team, and individual objectives. And I will demonstrate how we can do this in a process starting from step 1 to the last one. So ladies and gentlemen, these are the 3 key themes we shall focus on this morning so as to help us understand the concept of goal setting and performance planning. Having said that, we start with the first theme, and that is SMART goals and performance criteria. SMART goals and performance criteria. What do we mean by this? When you talk of specific goals, it refers to what needs to be achieved by the employees in a clear and precise manner. The key word here is what needs to be achieved. In HR, there are so many things that we want to achieve related to our functions. There are many functions which I can mention very quickly. One is recruitment and selection. 2, training and development. 3, performance management. 4, remuneration and compensation. And lastly is employee relations. In each of these functions, we can set specific goals to be achieved. Specific, what needs to be achieved. If I may start with the example of recruitment and selection. What do we need to achieve specifically? For example, hiring 30 new employees by end of first quarter of 2026. What we need to achieve there is hiring 20 new employees. So that is our specific objective and the timelines that are required. Secondly, to be specific also means being clear on what we want to be achieved. That means there should be no ambiguity, confusion, or misunderstanding. When there is ambiguity, it means that something is not clear. For example, I can go back to my statement of recruitment and selection. You can give an unambiguous objective like hiring employees in the organization. That is very ambiguous. Why is it ambiguous? That we do not know exactly how many employees are to be hired. Two, hiring is a long process, and therefore there is nothing specific in it, which means that we need to break down this process into simpler tasks or into specific roles which can be measured. So in that case, we are talking about specifying the number of employees to be hired or the timelines for hiring these people. Probably we can say, in order to avoid ambiguity, reduce the hiring timelines by 20 days. That becomes specific. It's no longer ambiguous, reducing the hiring time, say from 45 days to 30 days. That becomes clear. And anything that is not clear can be confusing and therefore misunderstood. Secondly, or thirdly, specific goals relate to outcomes. Outcomes are the results to be achieved or the benefit to be enjoyed from an activity or a process. I can use the example of training. That when we set specific goals in training, we can say that we will be training all operational staff by December 2026. And what could be the result of that? The result here is to improve customer service delivery. So why are we training? It's because we want to improve our results, that is customer service delivery, or even customer satisfaction. Another aspect related to specific goals is responsibility alignment. That there is a specific person who is accountable for the results. And when you talk about actionable recommendations, especially when it comes to HR audit or any other process like benchmarking, there should be one specific person who should be answerable for the outcomes or for the results. So we should specify who is responsible for achieving those objectives. And in this case, we are looking at two people. If it's development of a system like human resource information system, the person responsible is the HR manager and the ICT manager. These are people responsible for developing a system like human resource information system if you don't have any. So that at the end of it, we know who we can ask in case things don't work out, or even if they work out, we know who to reward. So responsibility alignment is an aspect of setting specific goals. Remember, I said there are 4 WH words which are related to specific goals. That is what, who, when, and possibly how. Then the who is the person responsible. Secondly, rather, number 4 is resource identification. That when we are developing our goals, which are specific, we should refer to specific resources required, tools, or support. So what kind of resources are required if we are to conduct performance management process? Or what tools do we need? So resource identification is important, that if we have to achieve anything, like we will say in the next few minutes, that for us to be realistic in our objectives, there must be adequate resources. And then lastly, the specific goals must be action-oriented, meaning that they should provide a clear direction on the actions to be taken to achieve those objectives. What action to be taken? For example, we are to conduct a job analysis. So if we are to conduct a job analysis, we need to do several things, one of which is to do or to analyze the current jobs which exist in our organizations before we conduct a job analysis. What jobs do we have? And then from there, we can collect information about those jobs. So if there is an objective for job analysis, you say conduct a comprehensive job analysis by the second quarter of 2026. That action is to conduct job analysis. The second aspect in SMART goals is measurability, that we should develop clear metrics or quantitative values that will help us to determine the success of our objectives. There are many metrics that we can use. Mostly we use quantitative metrics, just like in KPIs, which I'll talk about. We need to ensure that our objectives are measurable, and that will tell us whether we are making progress or we are succeeding in what we are doing. For example, we can use frequencies as a metric, can use percentages as a metric, or we can use ratios as a metric. For example, we want to conduct a recruitment and selection process. So what metrics do we use here when we are conducting recruitment and selection? We can say higher qualified employees in the marketing department by December 2026. The question is, what measurement have we made here? The measurement here is time. From today up to December, we have a time metric which we can measure. Or if it is in a manufacturing company and we want to enhance our productivity, we are saying that increase employee productivity by 20%. So the 20% becomes a metric for measuring productivity. The other aspect related to measurability is performance tracking, that we cannot measure anything unless there is monitoring against benchmarks. These benchmarks are standards that we use to measure performance. And in performance tracking, we will look at whether we have achieved our objectives in terms of those metrics, which we have set for ourselves. For instance, I've said hiring maybe 20 quality employees in the marketing department by December. So that by December, we should look back and see whether we have hired those 20 employees in the marketing department. So what will tell us that we have achieved that metric is the performance track or the benchmark. In terms of milestones, we are looking at stages within which we should be able to achieve our objectives. For instance, instead of saying that we should get all the 20 employees by December, we can say that in the first month of August, we hire 10 employees. In the second month, which is November or October, we hire 5 employees. In the following month of November, we hire 5 employees. So in September, we shall see 10 employees hired. In October, 5 employees. In November, 5 employees. So those 5 employees that we have hired within the 3 months become our milestone that we can track over that period. Measurable goals also relate to objective evaluation, that we are not biased when we use metrics. Being objective requires that we use measurements so that we do not bring our own emotions and biases into this process. So through measurement of our goals, we become objective because we rely on numbers. And therefore, objective evaluation in terms of measurable goals allows us to assess progress based on quantifiable results, quantifiable, which are measurable. And then measurable goals also become the basis for giving feedback to our employees. We give feedback depending on the cycle of our performance management system. And we can say that we can give feedback every quarter. That at the end of quarter 1, we give feedback. Quarter 2, feedback, quarter 3, up to quarter 4. And through this feedback, we are able to discuss results. And this discussion of results can be quantifiable. Quantifiable in terms of number of objectives that have been achieved, number of tasks that have been completed, number of targets that have been attained, among others. And then based on this feedback, we learn. We learn from our mistakes, and we also learn from our successes. That when we give employees feedback, they learn where they went wrong or where they underperformed. And then corrective measures can be taken where learning was falling short of expectation. And that requires improvement. So improvement can be done through training, through coaching, through resource provision, or through guidance. Closely related to measurable goals is motivation. That when we give employees feedback on their progress, they can be motivated to work even better. How does this work? That employees are able to determine their level of performance, either exceeding expectation, meeting expectation, or below expectation. Those who fall below expectation can be motivated to work even better so as to meet the required standards. That result we give, maybe below expectation could be 70 and below percent. So an employee scoring below 70% is below expectation. And that measurement becomes a source of motivation so that people can improve their performance, especially where rewards are involved. That those good performers whose output or results can be measured are rewarded. So even those who fall below expectation can be motivated because there is a reward based on their results. Or those who exceed expectations can also be rewarded so that they can maintain their performance or their momentum. So given these measurable results, we can motivate employees through positive reinforcement, such as rewards. And then lastly, measurable goals relate to clarity and accountability. That all of us, irrespective of the level of our position, are responsible for outcomes. At the individual level, we are responsible for producing results related to our jobs. At the team level, for example, a team like recruitment and selection is also responsible for ensuring that only quality staff are hired. And then at the departmental level, heads of departments are responsible for ensuring that quality talent is hired. And we can measure quality talent, we can measure quality of people that we hire and the timelines. So those measurements will tell us whether a person has accomplished their goals or not, and those who have not accomplished are accountable for the results. And if there are any measures to be taken, then they should also be accountable for the attainment of those measures. So that is the second aspect of SMART goals, that is measurable. The other one is achievable. By definition, we say that achievable goals are those that are realistic, attainable, or aligned. Realistic because it is possible to attain them given the current resources, the current skills, or the current support or tools available. Or they are attainable. Attainable because the employees are capable of achieving them. And that leads us to the second part of achievable goals, that is feasibility check. Feasibility relates to practicality of the goals to be achieved within the given time. So we are considering three key things when we are talking about practicality of a goal to be attained. One is the skill sets. The question we ask is, do the employees have the relevant skills and knowledge to perform the task? Skills are acquired through experience and through training. And if an employee does not have an experience or does not have relevant training, then that goal may not be achievable. Because what they will be deploying here is guesswork, which cannot help them to achieve an objective. Another aspect of achievability is time. How much time do we give the employees to achieve an objective? And again, I will talk about this in the next few minutes, that if the time is so limited, an employee may not achieve much if the assignment is big. An employee requires adequate time to achieve those objectives. Even if we want to stretch them, the timelines must also be adequate. Then they should be capable of achieving those goals if they have the experience, if they have the attitude, if they have the right behaviors, and if they have the right knowledge. Otherwise, they may not successfully complete their tasks if they don't have the capacity. And then a goal is achievable if it presents appropriate challenge, meaning that an employee should be challenged enough to achieve an objective. What does it mean to have a challenging objective? It means requiring more effort, 2, more skills, 3, more knowledge, and 4, more resources. And for somebody to be said to be stretched, it means that they require maximum effort, maximum skills, maximum knowledge. Otherwise, if it does not stretch an employee, then that employee will be underutilized, and that is not the intention of our organizations. I would imagine a situation where an employee sets very easy objectives, which are achieved within a very short time, and that becomes a challenge to meet the employee and discuss new objectives within a time period like the first quarter. That means that the objectives were not stretching enough. Confidence building, that achievable goals build the confidence of employees. That an employee believes that they are able to achieve those objectives. And they have what it takes to achieve them. So what does it take an employee to achieve employee objectives? The skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the capacity, or even attitude. So employees with the right mix of skills, knowledge, experience, and attitude, they develop confidence that those goals are achievable within those timelines. Another aspect is availability of resources, which make goals attainable. Resource availability. And here we are talking about several types of resources, such as human resources, technological resources, financial, and even informational. If we have adequate staff, especially in a department like HR, then an objective is achievable. If we deploy the right technology, such as ATS in recruitment and selection, then an objective of reducing the hiring time can be achievable. Or if we have adequate finances to conduct recruitment and selection, then that recruitment objective will be achieved. And lastly, information should be available as we hire new employees. Which information do we need about employees? One, their skills and knowledge. Two, their working experience. Three, their ability to perform, among others. So where do we get this information from? From their CVs. Or during interviews, we get it during interviews. So such information is important to make the objective of recruitment achievable. And then lastly, organizational constraints or challenges. All organizations face challenges, either arising from within or from outside. These challenges can become barriers to the achievement of objectives. For example, lack of effective leadership can be a constraint. Lack of resources can be a constraint or a barrier. Lack of skills and knowledge can be a barrier. Poor communication can be a barrier. So those organizational barriers can make objectives unattainable or not achievable. So those are the 6 key aspects related to achievable goals. Then relevant, before we take a break, I will talk about the relevance and time bound so that we can ask questions or make comments. Relevance. Anything that is relevant, it means that it is useful or supports a purpose. And therefore, the concept of relevance of goals means that they are aligned to the wider departmental or organizational priorities, vision, and strategy. Priorities are the focus areas of an organization. For example, financial focus, human resource focus, product focus, or even customer focus. An example of a priority in customer focus is to enhance customer satisfaction by 20%. That becomes an organizational priority. And therefore, our goals should focus on customer satisfaction. And when we cascade that to departmental and individual objectives, we'll see how this can be aligned. And then the aspect of vision, where the organization wants to be in the next 5 or 10 years. All our organizations have a vision statement. For example, to become a world-class university, and that means that by 2020, become a world-class university by 2020. World-class, that's a vision, meaning that recruitment, training, performance management must also be world-class. And that is how we can align our departmental objectives to the vision. And then strategy, how do we get there? There are many things that we can do as HR people to be a world-class organization. One, we can do quality recruitment and selection process. And that means in terms of cost, we reduce that. In terms of time, we reduce that. In terms of quality, we increase. So our quality aspects related to cost, to time, and to quality of employees. That is what we should be focusing on in terms of strategy. Then another aspect of relevance is that the goals must fit into the organizational strategy. That means that it is making a meaningful contribution to the desired outcomes of the organization. For instance, an organization may want to reduce its operational costs by 15%, operational costs by 15%. So the objectives we set at the departmental level should be tailored toward attainment of the 15% cost reduction. So where do we start? We look at all at the functions like recruitment, training, performance management, among others, and see where we can cut costs and set objectives on how to cut that cost. For example, we can cut training costs. How? By eliminating consultants or by using technology. So if that is the case, then our objective is to reduce cost by 5% through automation, automating of training. So that objective of automating training is tailored to reduce operational cost. And there are many other areas that we can cut costs, including numbers of employees. How do we reduce cost? One, we freeze recruitment and selection. Two, we freeze training. Three, we lay off staff. And four, we can retrench. So retrenchment becomes a strategy for reducing cost. And that becomes a fit into the organizational strategy of reducing cost by 15%. And then relevance also relates to the roles that we play in our organizations, either at the individual level, team level, or departmental level. That an employee sets an objective. That means, for example, an objective of undertaking 3 training programs within the second quarter of the year. 2 training programs. So those training programs must relate to the jobs that they do so that they improve their performance. And that will be part of their personal development objectives. So the objectives we set at the individual level should relate to the roles that people do. So if it's 2 trainings in what? And again, depending on the department where you belong, it could be training in bookkeeping or a training in AI finance. How do we use AI in finance? So if you are a finance person and you want to train in AI, then that AI must be related to finance. And that is role relevance. Another relevance aspect is motivation, that when we are setting our objectives, they should motivate employees so that they can meaningfully contribute to organizational success. For example, we want an employee to improve customer relations. So what do we need to do? We need to train them on customer relations management. And through that training, which is relevant to their job, they are motivated because they will be serving customers well, and that through customer service, the organization achieves its purpose. So employees are motivated because they have been trained on a relevant field related to their job, and that contributes to the organizational success. Another aspect is resource prioritization, where we allocate financial, human, physical, and time resources to the activities. Meaning that for a goal to be relevant, then adequate resources must also be allocated. And these relevant resources should enable an employee to perform their work efficiently and effectively. Then lastly, relevance relates to prioritization. That a relevant objective is one that prioritizes the activities that will achieve the greatest impact. And in some cases, we develop objectives in terms of priority. What should come first, second, and last? So those that are urgently required, we prioritize them. And those that can wait, we can perform them later. So prioritization is important when we are talking about relevance, because those most relevant goals are performed first in that order to the last one. Then lastly is time bound, so that we can take a break. There are two things related to time, deadlines and time frames. As I said in my introduction, deadlines relate to the specific dates when an activity is to be completed, specific dates. And then time frames is a time period, say from 8th today to 8th of next month. That becomes a timeline. And activities can be completed within today and the 8th of next month. But a deadline is specific. Timeframes are flexible, where a completion can be done within those timeframes, on or before. But a deadline cannot be passed, that an outcome must be achieved within that specific period. Then another aspect related to time bound is urgency. Those activities that are important and priority to the organization are performed first. So we give more time to activities that are a priority to the organization. And therefore, urgency creation encourages people to prioritize activities in the performance of their work. Progress monitoring can also be done by measuring time taken. So how much time has been taken by an employee, a team, or a department. For example, we can track the progress of an activity like training. People are trained maybe for a day, for 2 days, for a week, or for a month. And we can monitor the time taken for that specific training. I'm sure many of us have attended longer trainings which take a week or more. That week is a timeline, and we can measure progress using time if we have a schedule. So most training programs have schedules where there is a starting and end time And within those time periods, there are areas to be covered or activities to be conducted. So at the end of that training program, we can measure how much time was taken to deliver the training program. And therefore, time becomes a measure for tracking progress in anything that we do in HR. Deadline accountability is also another aspect related to time, that there is a specific day or a time when results are expected. So that specific time ensures that people are accountable for the things that they do. If they don't deliver results within the deadline, then they should be held accountable. We are better off when we achieve our results before the time set. And that is how we measure performing employees, that they are able to deliver results on time. So where deadlines are involved, it means that somebody must be accountable if they do not meet the deadline. It means that somebody else might be delayed if we are working in a conveyor belt kind of system. That if I delay an activity, which becomes the input of another, somebody might also be delayed and the whole process fails. Another aspect related to time is resource planning. Usually we allocate resources to activities. Activities are allocated time. The more time we take in completing activities, the more resources we are likely to use. For example, in a project, you have a project like automating the human resource function. If that is your project, you give yourself a timeline and allocate resources. Allocate resources for purchase of the technology or the software. Allocate resources for training, and also allocate resources for testing. If these timelines are not met, it means that we spend more resources to complete that project. So if the project was to take 3 months, it stretches to 5 months. It means that we have to spend resources for the extra 2 months, where trainers have to go for training for a longer period of time, or a consultant has to come on board to train people. Then lastly is performance focus, that we use time to measure the performance of an individual. Most of the activities that we perform are time bound. And therefore, we measure the time period taken to complete those activities. For example, if it's a time to complete a report, the report must be completed within that time. If somebody does not deliver the report on that time, then they are said to be poor performance. So those are the aspects related to SMART objectives. And lastly there, before we ask questions, is performance criteria. Remember our topic, if I may take us back a bit, our topics are 3. That is SMART goals and performance criteria. The second one is KPI development, and the last one is cascading goals. So the first part is SMART goals, and then the second part of that topic is performance criteria. These are the standards that we set for ourselves at the individual, team, or departmental level to achieve. And there are many performance criteria that we set for ourselves. One is a quality standard, and the quality relates to accuracy, completeness, and professionalism of what we do. Accuracy is the error rate. That as a quality standard, we should reduce errors. Anybody who produces many errors is said to be inaccurate and therefore produces poor quality work. If it is a report, how many errors are in that report? So if there is no error, then that individual is accurate. On completeness, you can have a report that is incomplete. Some parts are missing. A report should ideally contain the title page, the table of contents, executive summary, introduction, findings, and others. And if there is an element that is missing, then it is incomplete. And that can become a quality issue or a concern. Then professionalism is how we behave as HR managers in line with our profession. That as professionals, we are supposed to behave with integrity, with respect, with honesty. So we must be honest. We must demonstrate high levels of integrity. And those are measures of professionalism, which are standards of quality. Then another performance criteria is quantity. As we shall see under KPIs, these are measurable values, which are quantifiable in nature. And the quantities relate to aspects like money, time, or products. Money, it could be amount of money we generate that becomes revenue. Or a profit, how much profit we make over a period of time, that becomes a quantitative standard. Or if it is the products, we can look at products in terms of numbers. How many products have we developed over time? So that becomes a quantitative standard of performance. Then another criterion is timelines. Like I mentioned earlier in the last slide, where we are talking about time bound, and the last bullet there was measuring performance. And when we talk of performance criteria related to time, we are looking at time frames or deadlines. Are we able to perform our activities within the timelines? If not, then we are not good performers. Another criterion is behavioral standard. And one of the behaviors could be teamwork, cooperation, time management. We measure this so that we ensure that the right values are inculcated into the employees. Another performance criterion is outcome. These are the results we produce. Sorry. There are three aspects that are related to performance. We are talking about output, outcome, and impact. Output is the immediate results that we produce. For example, the output of recruitment and selection. What is the immediate output? Is quality employees. What is the outcome? That is the benefit. What is the benefit of hiring quality employees? It means enhancing organizational performance. So outcomes such as quality employees enhance organizational performance. And in today's organizations, the focus is on outcomes, output, and impact instead of focusing on activities. Activities don't tell us much, but what will create a positive change in the organization is output, outcome, and impact. Impact is long term, that when we train people, there is a long term impact. And what's that long term impact? Employee retention. So we retain employees. Employees are not retained in a day. It takes the hand of time, and that retention helps the organization to achieve its strategic objectives. And then lastly, another criterion is consistency standard, that we are able to achieve our objectives on a regular basis. And when we measure the performance, the deviation is not that big, maybe plus or minus 1. That consistency is important to ensure two things. One, reliability, and two, predictability. If we are not reliable in our performance, then our performance criteria is unpredictable and therefore cannot be relied on. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the first part of our program this morning. I now invite all of us to comment or ask questions, if any, before we move to the second part of this program. The floor is ours. Anybody with a question or a comment, please go ahead. Anybody with a question or a comment? Lillian, if you are there, please make your comment. Roslyn Mwema. Pamela. And lastly, Kio, if you are there, please go ahead with your question or make your comment. Okay, apparently there is no one with a question or a comment. I now suggest that we move to the next part. That is the second part of our discussion, and that is KPIs, KPI development. All of us have interacted with this concept before, and they are the foundation of performance measurement, without which we are not able to achieve our objectives. That once we set our objectives, we develop KPIs. For example, we are thinking about a function like recruitment and selection. And we set an objective like a reduction of recruitment and selection cost by 5%. If that is our objective, and this objective is to be achieved by third quarter of the year, so we say reduction of recruitment and selection cost by Q3 of 2026. If that is our objective, we need to set a KPI. And this KPI is an indicator of whether or not we have achieved that objective. So one of the KPIs in that regard could be the amount of money that we have saved. How much cost have we reduced? That becomes a KPI. And to help us understand what the concept of KPI is, we are talking about a measurable value showing how much progress we have made in achieving our specific objectives. A measurable value. And as I said earlier, there are two ways of measuring an outcome or a result. One is quantitative measure, or two, qualitative. Quantitative has to do with numbers or statistics, such as frequency or a percentage. For example, we want to train people in our organizations. And the KPI could be the number of employees who have successfully completed the training programs. Number of employees, that suggests frequency. And if it is a percentage, we can look at the completion rate of training programs. And how do we go about that? We look at the number of employees who have completed a training program. You divide that by the total number of employees who started the training. You multiply that by 100, you get a rating, which is a percentage. So that percentage is a measurable value, and it becomes your KPI. So if you are a training officer in the learning and development department, your objective could be increase the completion rate of training by 90%. That is measurable. That previously there were very few people completing, so we want to increase the number of people who are completing. So the completion rate is the number of people who have completed. You divide that by the total number of people who started the program, multiply by 100, you get your KPI, which is a percentage. And then this KPI has a connection with strategy. For example, our strategy could be enhance customer satisfaction by 20%. So if that is our objective at the corporate level, then the KPI of training must be aligned. That the completion rate will affect the customer satisfaction rate. That if we have many employees completing training programs successfully, then they are able to serve our customers and the satisfaction level will increase. So there should be a linkage between KPIs in whichever department or whichever area of HR with the strategic objectives and priorities of the organization. Secondly, a KPI is used in performance measurement. And how is this used? It's used as evidence for assessing progress. And evidence here is about data. So we collect data related to recruitment, to training, to performance management, to employee relations, to compensation and reward. Those are areas in which we can develop KPIs in. Or even retention, employee retention. How are we performing as a department in retaining employees? So the concept of KPI can be used in performance measurement. And then another aspect, and we shall talk about these characteristics of KPIs, is the relevant indicators. That the indicators we develop at the beginning of a year at the individual or departmental level should be relevant to the overall organizational strategy and objectives. So we identify KPIs that adequately and genuinely represent outcomes that are aligned with the departmental and organizational objectives. If it is a training, we want to assess return on investment of training. So we look at all the benefits that are achieved from training against the objectives or priorities of the organization. If an organization is to enhance its revenues by 10%, then a KPI in HR should relate to the attainment of that revenue of 10%. Like training. If it's training, how is training KPI associated with revenue generation? And we look at the benefits of that training through ROI. We look at how much revenue has an employee generated after training. And that revenue is aligned with the corporate strategy of revenue generation or increment of 10%. Then another concept related to KPI is reliable information. And this is an aspect of quality which I mentioned earlier. That a KPI should be accurate, meaning that there should be no errors. It should be timely and accessible. When you talk of timely, that the KPI is provided or that measurement is provided at the time it is required so that decisions are made at the right time. And it is accessible, meaning that somebody can easily obtain this KPI either from the system or from other records within the organization so that we can gauge our performance. So if the KPI is not accurate, it's not timely, it's not accessible, then it's not useful. And anything that is not useful is not relevant. Then lastly, decision support. We make decisions based on measurable values. For example, we want to promote employees. What can we rely on to make a decision to promote? It must be based on numbers or data. Numbers of employees with qualifications to be promoted. So we look at a KPI of the numbers of employees eligible for promotion. So that at the end of that process, we say that there were 10 employees eligible for promotion and 3 were promoted. So that promotion becomes a KPI that we have attained as HR managers. How do we develop KPIs, or what is the concept of KPI development? It is a process, and this process is creating measurable indicators. Like I indicated earlier in our definition of KPI, measurable value in bullet 1, indicating progress. And this is exactly what we are talking about here, creating measurable indicators that show progress or attainment of objectives. An example is employee turnover rate, which measures the retention effectiveness. If employees are leaving the organizations in large numbers, it means that our retention strategies are not effective. So turnover becomes a measure of retention effectiveness. Then an aspect related to KPI development is alignment. Everything that we do in HR, be it at the individual or departmental level, must be aligned to the corporate goals and objectives. That means that they must be relevant or fit or supporting the attainment of those goals. So KPIs, like I indicated, if I may take us back a little bit, look at bullet 4, relevant indicators. This measures performance outcome, relevant. So if you look at alignment, that the KPIs must be relevant in terms of alignment, that is, they are supporting the attainment of goals and organizational priorities. And I've given there an example. Training completion rate supports employee development objectives. How are these two related? That an employee who does not complete a training program, then it affects the attainment of development objectives. That all employees have not been adequately developed. Some people drop out. Ideally, all employees in any program should complete the training. And if they don't, then it affects the developmental objectives of the department. And again, I mentioned performance measures, that KPIs help us to measure performance by providing evidence. Evidence are measures that help us to assess whether or not we have achieved our objectives. And as an example there, we are saying recruitment cycle measures hiring efficiency, where we are talking about the time taken to hire qualified employees. If we take a very long time, then our hiring efficiency is low. If we take a long time. And that by implication means that there is a delay in attainment of organizational objectives because the time taken for hiring is longer. And by the time a person starts working and attaining adequate levels of performance is longer, and the effect is failed organizational performance. Another aspect is target setting, that KPIs become our performance levels. That at the individual level, we can set a KPI. A KPI like completing reports by the first quarter of this year. Which report? Recruitment and selection report. So if that is a KPI, we will look at how many reports have been completed by end of this year. So the number is a measurement, which becomes a KPI, which we can measure. The example there is to reduce employee turnover from 15 to 10 annually as a department. So at the end of the year, depending on when your year is starting, we should be able to see a reduction in the number of employees who have left. So 15% should come down to 10%. So that becomes a performance level, and that becomes our KPI in terms of turnover rate. As I indicated before, accountability creation, that KPIs give us indicators which we can use to measure the performance of an individual employee or a team. And everybody should take responsibility for their results. So if the KPIs are measurable results, everybody should be responsible or be accountable. For instance, HR managers oversee employee retention targets. And going to the turnover rate, if the turnover rate is high, then the HR manager should explain that after all the retention strategies have been implemented, what happened? How come that many employees are still leaving? And that becomes an accountability issue. Then lastly, continuous improvement, that through KPIs, we are able to identify two things. One, patterns, and two, trends. So those patterns, repeated activities or repeated results, they help us to identify trends, and those trends help us to predict the future. And through those trends, we are able to identify gaps. What is the difference between the actual and the expected? So if the actual is less than the expected, then there is a negative deviation, and we take corrective measures going forward. And I've given there an example where we are improving training programs based on evaluation results. So what could be the problem here? That the training results are not as expected. What are the results expected from training? One, improved revenue collection. Two, profit generation, if you are in profit. Three, customer satisfaction. And four, attainment of targets. At the end of the training, we expect those results. And if those results are our KPIs, then if we don't achieve them, there is a need to improve those training programs. And how do we improve the training programs? We may need to tailor-make training programs to suit individual needs, or to automate the training program so that we can measure outcomes in real time, or three, continuously monitor the implementation of the training programs so that we don't deviate. So those are aspects related to KPI development that at the back of our mind, we know that there is need for alignment. Two, KPIs are used for performance measurement. Three, KPIs are used for setting performance levels or target setting. Four, that KPIs are used to ensure all employees are accountable for their results. And lastly, there is need for continuous improvement where there are deviations when we measure results. Sorry. What are the features or characteristics of KPIs? Just like objectives, we say that objectives must be SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. And we have added an extra element, actionable. For KPIs, specificity means define what should be measured. If it is training, what should we measure in training? We measure time, we measure results, we measure behavior, and we measure learning. So those are specific aspects to be defined when we are measuring training. Then how do we measure training? We can do an interview. 2, we can do an observation. 3, we can do a test. Those are some of the measurements that we use to assess performance. Secondly, measurability, that KPIs must be quantifiable. And in some cases, we don't necessarily use quantities. We can also use other descriptions to show measurements. Excuse me. So measurability here relates to either numbers, frequencies, percentages, or even behaviors. Remember, we mentioned that one of the aspects that can be measured is professionalism. And the professionalism relates to behaviors which are acceptable in all fields. Then a good KPI should be attainable or achievable. That given the available resources, those KPIs, like 100% completion rate of training, should be attainable if the resources are available. Or reduction of recruitment time from 65 days to 30 days. That is attainable if the resources are available. So how do we ensure that the resources are available? That one, we should ensure that financial, human, and the physical resources are allocated adequately so that when they are needed, they will be used. Adequate allocation of those resources make KPIs attainable. Then relevance, that KPIs, like I said, just like in objectives, they should be aligned with strategy priorities and outcomes. That means that they should help to support attainment of strategic objectives or outcomes. Time bound, we mentioned that time bound has to do with 2 things. 1, deadlines which are violated, and 2, time frames, the start and end time of an activity. So KPIs like employee satisfaction rate, we want to conduct an employee satisfaction rate by first quarter of 2026. So if the first quarter started in July, then we should conduct that training within the first quarter, which ends in September. And that timeline should be tracked so that we do not delay the training programs that we were to conduct. Then lastly, a good KPI should be actionable, meaning that it should be implemented the way it is by way of 1, clarity of actions to be taken. 2, the person responsible for the actions. 3, the deadlines or timelines to be taken. And lastly, the outcomes. So a KPI is actionable if it can provide information that can be used in decision making. So those are the characteristics of good KPIs. Now, what are the types of KPIs that we should consider when we are developing KPIs? Because the topic here is KPI development. So KPI development, what are the types of KPIs we should consider when we are developing these KPIs? And number one is strategic KPIs. These are long-term in nature, and they relate to the whole organization, meaning they are fairly broad. And as HR managers, whatever we do, they should be aligned with the long-term goals of the organization or long-term strategic KPIs. An example is improving employee productivity by 15% within 1 year. A year is a long time, and therefore that becomes a strategic KPI of 15%. So the measurable value here is productivity of 15%. And we are measuring this in terms of percentage and in terms of duration, which is 1 year. That the productivity level of 15 should be attained within 1 year. Secondly is operational KPI, which measures the efficiency and the effectiveness of day-to-day processes or activities. In HR, we have so many day-to-day or routines that we perform, either in recruitment, in training, in performance, among other activities. An example is where we want to reduce recruitment cycle time from 60 to 30 days. Why do we talk about routine activities? Because recruitment is conducted, recruitment is conducted within a specific period of time and on a regular basis. Some organizations conduct recruitment at least twice or thrice a year, depending on the need. And the need arises when employees exit the organization or are promoted, so that we need replacements. Or when we are a new organization and we have to hire employees. But talking of reducing recycle time, it means that this is an existing organization which has been conducting recruitment and selection. So we want to reduce these timelines from 60 to 30 days. And as I mentioned earlier, if we take a longer period of time, there are resource implications that we might spend more money to hire these people if the timelines are longer. So operational KPIs are those that relate to the routine processes like training, like recruitment, like performance management. Then thirdly is leading KPIs. These are KPIs that are set to measure the impact of future performance outcomes, impact of future leading. For example, reduction of cycle time. How does that impact the performance of an organization in the future? Or if it's training, completion rate, how does that affect the future outcomes of the organization? So we have given an example there, increase employee training completion rate to 95%. And why do we increase this? This is because we want to improve service delivery. And enhanced service delivery means higher customer satisfaction rates and higher employee retention rates. So that becomes a KPI which enhances future performance outcomes. Then looking at lagging is what has been achieved. For example, you have conducted a training in the last 6 months. So you look at the results achieved after that training. An example I've given there is reduce annual employee turnover from 18 to 12%. The question we are asking at the back of our mind is, what is the outcome after reducing employee turnover from 18 to 12%? I can give a few examples. One is a positive corporate image. That becomes an outcome, what has been achieved after reduced employee turnover. Two, increased productivity. Employees will be more productive if all employees are retained, because if employees leave, there might be work overload and some employees might be stressed and burned out. So reduction of turnover results in employee productivity or even a reduction of organizational costs, that employees who leave the organization become a cost. And there are those direct and indirect costs. For example, the cost of replacement, advertisement, interviewing, and onboarding. Those are costs. So if we reduce this turnover from 18 to 12, it means that we are going to reduce the cost of staffing. The other type of KPI is quantitative. And allow me to give a rider here, that strategic, operational, leading, and lagging KPIs can also be quantitative or qualitative. It's only that we are looking at measurable values when we are talking about quantitative and qualitative KPIs. So in terms of quantitative, we are looking at numerical measurements like complete 100% performance appraisals by end of the year. In some organizations, appraisals are conducted but not completed for some reason. It could be a change in strategy. It could be an unforeseen calamity, or it could be a new management, or it could be a new system that causes interruption. So we give a quantitative measure like 100% completion of appraisals. Then qualitative KPIs are those that can be explained or described. And you remember I mentioned earlier on, we talk about performance criteria such as quality criteria. Quality. We can measure the quality of employees, the quality of training, and the quality of employee relations. So if it is the quality of recruitment, we look at the performance of the new recruits. Are they delivering results for the jobs that they were hired? If not, then that becomes a quality issue. Then another aspect which is qualitative is perceptions. It's the way we interpret our environment or the things that we do. So the perception here could be related to the job, it could be related to payment, it could be related to working conditions. And these perceptions lead to attitudes. So you can have a positive or a negative perception of your job. So the jobs that people do can be perceived to be low-paying jobs or high-paying, or can be perceived to be non-value-adding jobs or value-adding jobs. And in terms of perception, we can look at employee commitment, either to the organization or to their jobs. How do they perceive their jobs? Are they happy with the jobs or not? Then another qualitative aspect is behavior. And here we are talking about the right behaviors that everybody should demonstrate. I've given an example of employee satisfaction where we want to achieve 90% employee satisfaction with HR services. So how do we go about measuring employee satisfaction? We conduct a survey, a satisfaction survey, touching on various aspects of HR, like recruitment, how satisfied are employees, training, how satisfied are they, performance management, how satisfied are they, reward and compensation, how satisfied are people. So those are qualitative measurements related to KPI development. So when you think of KPI development, think strategic, that is long term. Think operational, those are routines. Think leading, the future impact. Think lagging, the results of what has been implemented. And then you can quantify this or describe them. Then what are the steps in developing KPIs? Number one is to identify strategic objectives. And I can go back to what we have just mentioned here. Strategic KPI, one of which is employee productivity by 15%. So that is what we define here in the steps. Or this other example of employee retention. So we want to retain employees, maybe enhance employee retention by 95%. So if we have to retain employees, 95% of our employees, that becomes a strategic objective. Then from this strategic objective, we develop a measurable indicator. And this measurable indicator related to employee retention is turnover rate. So how many people have left? So if the retention rate is 95%, that is your aim, how many have left? So that becomes a measurable indicator. And then how do we then retain those employees? That moves to step 3. We set realistic and challenging targets. And that means reducing employee turnover from 18 to 12. I'm using this example for consistency, so that we don't have so many figures that we are throwing around. Remember again, we said that a good KPI should be specific, measurable, realistic, and time-bound. So in step 3, we are talking about realistic and challenging targets. Is 18% realistic? The answer could be yes, depending on the resources available. Then in step 4, assign responsibility to various people responsible for that KPI. So in the case of employee turnover, the person responsible is the HR manager. that we as HR managers are responsible for ensuring that we retain employees. But again, it should not be the sole responsibility of HR managers, as it were. Even other managers could also be responsible depending on their behavior or the way they treat employees. So in a general way, all of us are responsible for employee retention. But HR managers could be more responsible because most of the things that motivate employees to leave are related to recruitment, to training, to compensation, to working conditions, which are a function of HR. So HR managers are more accountable for the KPIs related to turnover. Then step 5 is communicate the KPIs to all the relevant stakeholders. That if we want to achieve that turnover rate of 12%, we communicate to all departments, finance, ICT, marketing, production, and others, explaining measures that we are undertaking to meet that target or that KPI. That if people are not aware of the initiatives, then it's difficult for them to also support the HR department to achieve this KPI. Then lastly, step 6 is the review. This is going back to the objectives and finding out whether or not we have achieved those KPIs. And we can conduct reviews depending on our policy, either quarterly, half annually, and Grace, kindly mute your mic. Thank you. So step 6, we review and refine KPIs, either quarterly, half annually, or annually, depending on our policy. The recommendation is quarterly because if you wait until the end of a year, so many things could have changed or so many targets could have been missed, and it becomes difficult to take corrective measures. So it is good practice to review KPIs quarterly so that 1, we are able to measure progress. 2, we are able to identify deviations. 3, we are able to develop corrective measures or take corrective measures in time. So those are the steps involved in KPI development. Before we take another break, what are the benefits of developing KPIs? 1 is clarity. Because KPIs relate to measurable values and they are specific, it makes it easier for everybody involved to understand their expectations, objectives, and performance levels. For example, we have given reduction of turnover rate from 18 to 12%. That is very clear. It's not ambiguous. That clarity tells us what we need to work toward. And therefore, we understand that we want to achieve a 12% reduction of turnover. Then accountability. We said earlier on that in the steps of developing KPIs, if you look at step 4, there is somebody who should be answerable for the attainment of those KPIs, step 4. And here we are talking about benefits. That when we have a particular person accountable for this KPI, then it becomes easier for us, 1, to identify specific gaps related to the performance of that one person. 2, we increase ownership of results. That KPI show results. The person working on this result should be responsible for them. So accountability is one of the benefits we derive from having clear, specific, and measurable KPIs. Another benefit is performance improvement, that through KPIs, we are able to perform benchmarks or conduct benchmarks, compare between what was expected and what was achieved. If the expected was higher than what is achieved, then there is a gap. And that gap must be bridged through performance improvement. So where there are gaps in KPIs, we are able to identify measures to improve them. And where the gaps are positive, we are able to maintain the standards. If one of the KPIs is a standard of quality, then we should maintain those standards. Then another benefit is strategic alignment, whereby we are ensuring that the KPIs we set at the individual level, team level, or organizational level are aligned with corporate strategy. If they do not support corporate strategy, then we shall have failed. In the next slide, I will be talking about cascading goals, that we identify or define corporate goals and then translate them into expectations at the departmental, team, and individual level. So that alignment is key because we don't want to have a strategic drift where we are moving away from our strategic objectives. So the KPIs must be aligned, or they should be able to support the attainment of corporate objectives. Then motivation. KPIs encourage people to engage or perform even better when they are given feedback. We mentioned that KPIs give people feedback. So that feedback tells people where they are in terms of their performance. And people with higher performance levels, they become motivated. And even those with lower performance levels, there could be reinforcement that can motivate them to perform even better. Then lastly, KPIs help us to develop learning and development initiatives where employees reflect on their performance, reflect on their growth, and also ensure continuous improvement. So we learn from our performance. And the KPIs are indicators of performance. And from those performance gaps, we are able to bridge those gaps through learning new skills, learning new knowledge, or learning new ways of doing things. So KPIs are indicators that can help us to develop training and development initiatives, which can help us to enhance learning. Before we finish, I want us to go back to what we have learned and look at KPIs and their development. So anybody with a question or a comment to make, please go ahead and ask your question or make a comment about the concept of KPI. 2, about KPI development. 3, characteristics of KPIs. 4, types of KPIs. 5, steps in KPI development. And 6, benefits of KPI development. So anybody can go first. If you are ready, please ask your question or make a comment. Joyce, if you are there, please ask your question or make your comment. Catherine, go ahead. Yes, I can see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for this. It's good learning. I especially like the different types of KPIs and how they are all working together towards the greater strategic goals of the institution. That as we do them departmentally, they are still linked. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for your comment. And I'm happy that you have a few takeaways in regard to the types of KPIs. Anybody else with a comment or a question to make? Hesbon? Aha. Claire Chepkembo, if you are there, please go ahead with your question or make a comment. Hesbon, go ahead. Hesbon, the floor is yours. I saw, yes, go ahead. All right, Carol. And Imana Joffrey, if you are there, please ask your question or make your comment. Looks like there's no comment or a question. Thank you, Catherine, for that comment. We continue with the next part, that is cascading goals. This is very important because in terms of alignment, it comes handy so that we know who is contributing what and at what level. By cascading goals, we ensure that all the HR initiatives at the individual, at the team and departmental level are aligned. So what do we mean by cascading goals? This is translating, excuse me, translating organizational strategy into departmental, team, and individual level objectives. Meaning that when you cascade, you define what or assess what the corporate strategy is about, and then interpret that at the departmental level, see what are the implications. If I may go to a strategy I mentioned before, or objective rather, a strategic objective, like increasing organizational revenue by 20% at the end of the year 2026. Increasing revenue by 20%. That is what the corporate strategy says. So when you cascade, it means you interpret that strategy or translate it into a departmental objective. So in terms of revenue, what is this that as a HR manager can do to increase revenue? And you go to all the functions of HR like recruitment. How does it help to generate revenue? Training, how will it help to generate revenue? Performance management, how will it help to generate revenue? Compensation and reward, how will it help? And as HR department, you say like recruit quality staff, so that they can generate revenue. If it's training, it is ensure 100% completion of training programs. Why do we need 100%? So that employees can work to generate revenue. Because a training need means there was a performance gap. And that performance gap could be failure to meet targets, experiencing difficulties in the performance of your work, or not meeting your deadlines. So if training can help improve, then that becomes a departmental objective of ensuring 100% training completion rate. Then goal cascading also means strategic alignment, where we ensure individual, team, and departmental goals help to support organizational priorities. And a priority like the one I've mentioned, increasing revenue by 20%, the individuals must work at or towards attaining that 20%. The teams must also work, and everybody in the department must work. And in this case, we must have KPIs that will show that we are helping our organization achieve its strategic priorities. Excuse me. Then organizational direction is also related to goal cascading. That all of us, irrespective of our level, understand our expectations. At the individual level, we have KPIs, which are derived from objectives. So we understand our objectives in relation to the corporate objectives or expectations. So what is this that we are doing at the individual level to attain the 20% revenue generation? It means reporting to work on time at the individual level. So attendance should be 100% if that is your objective, so that there is no customer who is kept waiting, because a waiting customer can become a dissatisfied customer, and that customer can easily leave. And a leaving customer lives with the money that we wanted to generate. So that attendance is important for customer service, so that our customers are not kept waiting. So when we cascade goals, we know the direction in which we are going. The direction is to enhance revenue, as an example, by 20%. So that is where we want to go. Thirdly, or number 4, is shared accountability, where everybody in the organization is responsible for supporting the organization. At the individual level, we are responsible for performing our tasks effectively in relation to revenue generation. At the team level, maybe you are in a department like R&S, recruitment and selection. Your work is to ensure you hire quality staff. This quality staff will work and enhance revenues. That's at the team level. At the departmental level, you ensure that adequate resources are allocated to recruitment and selection. And all of us are responsible to ensure that we achieve the levels of revenue that have been set. So all of us have a shared responsibility of ensuring that objectives are achieved. Performance alignment, that when we cascade goals, we align performance from the lowest level to the highest level. that whatever an operative is doing at the gate affects what happens in the office, affects what happens in the department, and also affects what happens in the whole organization. So we must align our performance based on cascading. Even the people at the gate, the security personnel, the way they treat customers at the gate will affect our revenue generation. If customers are frustrated at the gate because of poor quality personnel at the gate, that customer will walk away or discouraged and never come back, or discourage others not to come to our organizations. And therefore, as an imperative, all of us must ensure that whatever we do is aligned with corporate strategy. And then lastly is results integration. That all of us are expected to produce results at all levels, because we are talking about cascading. At the individual level, you produce results. At the team level, you produce results. At the departmental level, you produce results. And at the organizational level, we all produce results. And collectively, we contribute to the attainment of organizational results. And that is the main goal of cascading goals. The main objective of cascading goals is to ensure the results of individuals, teams, and the departments collectively contribute to the common organizational results. Then what are organizational goals? One is strategic direction. An example there is to improve productivity by 15% within 12 months. That is a priority for an organization like this. All of us have our own organizational priorities, which are contained in our strategic plans. Depending on when your strategic plan started, it could be 2025, 2028. Some could be 2023, 2027. Those are 5-year strategic plans. And one of them is to enhance productivity within the next 12 months. So that strategic plan provides a direction where all efforts and the resources should be focused. Secondly is vision alignment. I indicated earlier, and I believe we all know, that a vision is the future position or a status of the organization. Where do we want to be? Either in terms of market share, or in terms of competition, or in terms of performance. So if this is a long-term objective of the organization, then everything else we want to do should be aligned. An example there is to become an employer of choice by 2030. It's like Vision 2030. To a HR manager, to become an employer of choice, we have to focus on our functions. Recruitment, will it help us become employer of choice? Training, will it help us to become an employer of choice? Performance management, will it lead us to employer of choice? Compensation, will that help us become that employer of choice? So if that is our vision, to become an employer of choice, when we are cascading this, we align our HR initiatives with that vision. Strategic outcomes, we have said outcomes are results. And these results benefit the organization. For example, we said reduction of employee turnover from 20 to 12. Previously, I said 18 to 12. If we reduce turnover from 20 to 12, what happens next? How do we benefit? That's the question that we want to ask ourselves. So the benefit is improved performance, enhanced corporate image, employee commitment, and also organizational performance. The other one is leadership focus, that as HR leaders, we should endeavor to ensure that the corporate objectives are achieved. And we make a commitment that we shall do all that it takes to ensure that the organization achieves its strategy. For example, implement a talent management strategy by December 2020. In talent management strategy, we are talking about attracting talent, 2, utilizing talent, 3, developing talent, and 4, retaining talent. So what is this that you want to do in order to attract talent, in order to develop talent and retain talent? To attract talent, it means that you advertise, shortlist, interview, and onboard. Utilizing talent means allocating tasks and responsibilities, and retaining talent, rewarding and creating an environment that motivates people. So as HR leaders, it's our responsibility to ensure that all these talent management strategies are implemented by the year 2026. Then performance expectations. These are standards that we want to achieve. Remember, we said in our introduction, SMART goals and performance criteria. Performance criteria are the standards, which are the expectations that we want to achieve. And here we have given 90% employee engagement, if that's an expectation. You could have other expectations in relation to the various initiatives like recruitment, training, performance management, employee relations, and reward. And lastly, as leaders, we need to allocate adequate resources so that those organizational priorities are achieved. So that is the starting point in cascading goals. If I may take us back, we are talking about cascading goals. Cascading, we are cascading from the top, from the organization to the lowest level. So we have started with the organizational goals, and these are the ones to be cascaded downwards. Then after those organizational goals, we look at departmental goals. So at the departmental level, what do? We convert those priorities at the top into HR objectives. And here is an example: develop workforce capability through targeted training programs. Allow me to go back to a strategic direction or a priority. That is bullet 1, improve employee productivity by 15% within 12 months. At the departmental level, we want to convert that into a departmental objective, and that is developing employees through targeted training so that they can achieve 15% productivity. Why? It is because through training, people sharpen their skills and knowledge, which enable them to perform even better. Performing employees are productive. And if we want to enhance productivity of 15%, then we must have targeted training programs. And then talent management, which I've just mentioned, these are initiatives which support those corporate priorities. For us to improve productivity by 15%, there is this talent management initiatives like recruitment, training, performance management, among others. And I've given an example of succession plans for critical positions. For us to prepare succession plans, we need to look at the human resource plan in terms of demand and supply. And that human resource plan will give us the future requirements of employees in terms of numbers and the qualities. So based on those numbers, we are able to compare between demand and supply and get a gap. Where there is a shortage, it means that we have a deficit and therefore have to take measures to bridge that gap. So if a gap is at the top of a department or at the top of the organization, we prepare succession plans. And therefore we look at, we do a succession map. Who is eligible to take over positions of responsibility? And from that succession map, we develop a succession plan. And from that plan, we are able to promote people to higher positions by the end of that year. So part of talent management includes succession planning, and the succession plans start immediately an employee joins an organization. And probably that is why we ask people during recruitment where they see themselves in the next 5 years. We are looking at their current potential and also their future plans so that when we develop succession plans, we are sure that we have the right number and the quality of people. Another aspect related to a departmental goal is recruitment effectiveness. That if we want to achieve this organizational priority of 15% productivity, then recruitment effectiveness kicks in. We must acquire the right number and the quality of people. And not only the numbers, there are other KPIs that we need to think about. The cost and hiring time. I've given the example of time, that we reduce the average hiring time from 60% to 30%. This is aligned to the objective or this priority of productivity by 15%. That when we hire employees within a short time, then there are no gaps in performance. Productivity is enhanced. Then another initiative is employee development, where we are strengthening the skills and knowledge of employees so that they can achieve the productivity rate of 15%. An example in employee development is training 80% of employees in digital skills. Why digital skills? Because our environment is changing, and for us to be productive, we need to embrace technology. And we can enhance employee productivity by 15% through adoption of those digital skills. And then performance management is a whole process of performance planning, goal setting, performance prioritization, consultation, implementation, rewarding, and review. So in performance management, as HR managers, we look at the evaluation systems. And one of the evaluation systems is appraisals. We want to achieve 95% completion rate of appraisals. And I mentioned earlier that some organizations may not complete these appraisals due to unforeseeable circumstances. But where possible and all factors taken constant, appraisals must be completed 100%. So as to ensure that the organization achieves productivity. If you again look at bullet 1 under organizational goals, the organization should enhance employee productivity by 15%. So we can only measure productivity through performance appraisal. And then lastly, HR measurement. Overall, as HR department, we must measure our performance in all departments. Recruitment measure, training measure, employee relations measure, compensation and reward you measure. So this measurement should enable an organization to achieve its objectives because we are aligned. And an example there is to reduce employee turnover by 8% within 12 months, if that is a departmental objective. And then thirdly, this is now level 3. Level 1 was the corporate level, organizational level. Level 2 was the team, departmental level. Then level 3 is team level, that the teams in different departments, and I'll confine myself to HR department, must align themselves with the departmental goals and to the organizational goals. In HR, we have different teams. We may have a team handling recruitment and selection. Another team could be learning and development. Another team could be performance management. Another team could be employee relations. So all these teams have a responsibility of ensuring that they achieve their objectives, which are aligned with departmental goals and to the corporate goals. And here we are talking about an example of a recruitment and selection team, which improves candidate sourcing processes. What are these candidate sourcing? This is hiring. We are looking at internal and external source and the tools and the methods we use to attract people to the organization so that 1, we reduce the cost of hiring. 2, we reduce the time of hiring. And 3, we improve the quality of hiring. So if candidate sourcing processes are improved, we reduce cost, we reduce time, and we improve results. And again, if you look at the corporate strategy of 15% productivity, that means that the team in charge of recruitment and selection has helped to attain the 15% productivity. So if productivity has to do with improved revenue generation, the HR department has helped to cut costs and therefore improved revenue. Another aspect related to team target is recruitment targets, where team outcomes are measured in line with the departmental and corporate objectives. And an example there for the recruitment team is prepare qualified candidates, shortlist within 7 days. This can be achieved through technology, but if you use the traditional manual method, it can take many days or many people to do a shortlist. So as a team in charge of recruitment, we should endeavor to shortlist candidates within a very short time. The team in learning and development should aim at improving their training and development programs. And an example here is deliver 20 competency-based training sessions. 20 competency training sessions, 20. But by the end of a year, this team in learning and development has delivered 20 training sessions on competency. So competency has to do with interpersonal skills, leadership, communication, among others. So if we have to train people on those areas, then we measure that within the learning and development team. For those working in employee relations, we want to enhance employee relationships by resolving conflicts. So the team in employee relations is to resolve conflicts within 10 working days. That is a measure of success, which is aligned to the departmental objectives of the HR department, as well as the corporate objective. And then what are the HR analytics goals? Analytics has to do with collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and presenting data. As teams, we need to make decisions based on data. So we collect data, analyze the data, and then make a report. And if we have to do that at the team level, we produce monthly dashboards by the 5th day of the month. So dashboards are reporting tools. So if you want to make a report within a very short time, perhaps you can use HR dashboard. If you don't have a dashboard, you can use HR information system. And then lastly, in terms of team goals, is team measurement. So how do we measure team goals? We go back to the KPIs, the indicators showing the levels of attainment. And if it is the overall team as a HR department, we have 95% completion of planned HR activities as a department. And if it is a unit like L&D, 100% completion of training programs. That can become a measurement of the team. As we close, we look at the individual level goals, because we said we are cascading goals from the top, that's the corporate organizational level, to the departmental level, to the team level, and now individual level. This is the individual goals that we want to achieve. And we set objectives at this level in consultation with our supervisors. So if it is as a HR manager, you are required to prepare a report, and this report could be related to recruitment and selection. So you should prepare an accurate report by the end of each month. So that becomes your individual objective, either in training, in performance management, in recruitment, or any other. Then role and alignment. Your individual duties should be linked or connected with the team and the departmental priorities. For example, we are recruiting, and at the individual level, you are required to screen candidates. So you as the individual, you must screen those candidates within the agreed period of time. So if it is 1 week, which you mentioned earlier, you screen these candidates within 1 week. Again, at the individual level, you set SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. For example, update records. So if it is performance appraisal records, you should update them adequately and achieve 98% accuracy. Just an example. So you are updating 100 records, 98% accuracy is commendable, but we endeavor to achieve 100%. Because any error, for example, in payroll, a 98% accuracy can lead to losses. Can imagine there is an error in computation of salaries of people, and the 2% can be a huge sum of money. So we endeavor to achieve 100% at the individual level. There are some cases where we don't have to give plus or minus accuracy levels. Some must be 100% if we have to make headway in what we are doing. And then we look at the individual contribution. What are we contributing to the departmental or organizational level? So based on our job descriptions, we should be able to make a contribution, either serving customers within or outside. At the individual level, we also measure performance in terms of time, in terms of resource utilization, or in terms of people served. As a HR officer, if you are an individual and you are tasked with the responsibility of making reports, one of the measurements is completion of reports after recruitment within 5 working days. But with the AI these days, you should be able to complete a report immediately after a job offer has been made or onboarding has been completed. Because you have the data in your system, you only need to instruct your computer using AI to generate a report on recruitment and selection. Then lastly, goal ownership, that all of us are responsible for what we do and the results we produce. So at the individual level, we are encouraged to take responsibility for the attainment of our objectives. So if it's a record that we are keeping, we must maintain accurate records. That is our responsibility. So what is the process of cascading goals? So we look at the overall organizational goal, 15%. Departmental goal, they train 80% employees. HR team conduct 20 training sessions. Individual goal, prepare monthly training timelines. Performance measure, we measure training completion or participant satisfaction. And the strategic outcome here is to enhance employee productivity. And the productivity is number 1 there, which is 15%. And we want to achieve that outcome. Lastly, we have the benefits of cascading. Like we said in KPIs, there is clarity, understanding expectations at all levels, alignment, everybody works together to achieve strategic goals, and it's our all collective effort. Motivation, we are inspired to engage and put more effort in what we do. Accountability, again, we are all accountable or responsible for attainment of goals. And in addition, performance improvement. When we cascade goals, we improve performance because we know what is expected. And lastly, we achieve organizational success because everybody has produced results at all levels. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your participation. And I will want to invite for the last time, anybody with a question or a comment to make, please go ahead and ask your question or make a comment. So ladies and gentlemen, the floor is ours. Please make your comment or ask your question. Grace? Okay. Bells?
No comment, but I'm glad. It has been very insightful.
Thank you, Grace, and I'm happy that you have been following. All right. If there is no question or comment, I want us to stop there. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for being there. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Please check out on our program schedule so that you can get a complete picture on performance management. Today we have addressed ourselves to goal setting and performance planning. And for those who have not participated in these online programs, I will invite you to go to our website and look at our programs, online programs, workshops. And upon payment, you should be able to access all the learning materials and all the lectures that we have given before. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. May God bless you. I can see people congratulating everybody. I want to wish you a good day and may God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.